One of the interesting things about urban culture in the last half century is that urban residents are increasingly college educated, smart people with a lot of cultural capital. Might not have a lot of money, but they have had fairly good jobs and a terrific interest in history and art and what we could call the aesthetics of city life. So this made them look for the kinds of cities and the areas in cities that had the cobblestone streets, red brick or brownstone or gray stone houses, and small stores that could be converted to the interesting quality of life that they sought. This is very different from their parents' generation in the 50s or 60s of the last century, because those people often tried to escape urban life, which they saw as closed in and tenements and crowded streets and overimposing monolithic office towers, for the suburbs. A lot of those people of the parents' generation left the cities because they thought the cities were going to be poor and degraded. But it's their children who have returned to cities, who have confirmed the interest of city life. But the more of them or of us who come to cities, the less space there is for the low-income people who have been living in cities all along. So it's a curious kind of culture that develops out of great appreciation for the authentic city that has been here, and a tendency to impose new tastes that drive out long-time residents and businesses. The idea of authenticity really comes from Shakespeare's time and Rousseau's time a century later, when people began to realize that there is such a thing as an authentic self that could thrive in a natural or an authentic society. There haven't been too many completely authentic societies, but from the 17th and 18th centuries, some groups of people have tried to absent themselves from society, to go to a rural commune, let's say, to found a utopia, and sometimes even to come to a working class neighborhood, to live among people and live in surroundings that they think will allow them to create an authentic self. So these are people who don't look for certain kinds of fashions to demonstrate their identity, and they don't necessarily join political groups or social movements, but they try to live in a space that they can identify with as an authentic space and an authentic culture. Sometimes it's neighborhoods like, Bohemian districts of Paris in the late 19th century, or Greenwich Village, a Bohemian district of New York in the early 20th century. But when those areas become too conformist or too expensive, those who seek an authentic life move elsewhere, so that the center of artistic authenticity in New York moved from Greenwich Village to Brooklyn Heights in the mid-20th century, and also by the 1960s to the East Village, which was not called the East Village then. It was part of the Lower East Side. But I guess an enterprising real estate agent or developer said, there are so many hippies living here looking for, for some kind of commune in the city, that I'll benefit by calling this area the East Village and connect it with the old bohemianism of Greenwich Village. And then by the 1990s, the East Village became very expensive, partly because of a university expansion nearby, and partly because of the attractiveness of some of the hippie and art destinations that had been created during the 1980s. So the center of authenticity then moved across the East River on the subway to Williamsburg, which then became a district of indie music bands and bars and kind of edgy performance spaces. This of course, is a young sort of authenticity. It's different from the gentrification of a more settled, slightly older population. So as rents go up, the search for authenticity expands, looking for other areas of the city that offer a kind of low down but truer sense of where the self can develop.